Chapter 4, Selection Sets, Basic AutoCAD CAD 116. Today we're going to work with selection sets, which are selecting objects and the different ways that we can select those objects. We'll work with some modify commands. We'll create these different selection sets. We'll erase some objects, move and copy them, and we'll look at the noun and verb syntax. All right, so there's a number of different ways that we can use these modify commands. We can either type them in on the keyboard, we can use the menu bar, or we can use an icon. And so I have AutoCAD open right here. And if I maximize it, and I'm going to switch my screen so I can see it on my other screen. There we go. And as we talk about selection sets, what they've done is they have a, if we were to say File New, right now we're just working with the AutoCAD template, and we can say OK. It's basically a blank template. There's nothing in it. Versus if we were to work with our D2L, which we'll do for most of our drawings, we can go to D2L, and then we can go up to find our title blocks, all title blocks. And so, for example, if we're doing an architectural drawing, we can get this B-size architectural drawing, we can download it, and we can open that. Tells you, gives you a warning. It says that it will have a plot stamp, meaning when it prints out, it's going to say produced by Autodesk Student Version. So be a little bit careful if you bring home things from work, because they will have Autodesk Student Version stamped on the printouts. So typically I like to use the templates because we have the layers built in, and I can choose these different layers. I'm going to go to Model Space by clicking on the Model tab down here. And then again, I always like to start off by telling students to show the menu bar, and so you can click on this little icon here, show menu bar, and then you have the menu bar here with the written commands. And then we also have the ribbon right here with our draw commands, or modify commands, annotation, which is a fancy word for dimensioning, layers, blocks, properties, groups, utilities, and clipboard. So there's quite a few things. And if we take a look at the textbook, the textbook exercises have us working with these selection sets. And so they have a circle and then a rectangle with a line down the middle. If I was to just reproduce that, I could say circle, click once. Oops, I must have missed it. Circle will be reflected back in the command prompt. And I can just click once, right click, repeat circle. If I hover over the edge of it with O-snap being on, and gravitate to the center of it. So O-snap is very helpful. Sometimes it gets in the way, but as long as it's checked off when I'm in the circle command, I can acquire the center of that and then draw a circle. And then if I want to draw a rectangle, I can go over here and just put in a rectangle with a line down the middle. If midpoint is enabled, when I gravitate toward the midpoint, my O-snap will grab it, and then I can hit escape. And so as we look at these different ways of selecting objects, what they'll say is you'll get a selection preview. So you can kind of see it starts to highlight just before I grab it. And so that's what's called highlighting. And then I can erase something. They talk about working with grips. So if I select something like this with a grip, and then I hit erase, it's like a reverse noun verb. And what verb noun selection is like saying I go to the store or to the store I go. It's just the same words, just in reverse order. And so when you use grips, it's backwards. You select what you're going to modify, and then you tell it what you're going to do to it. Versus the other way around, where you say, I'm going to erase this, and then I'm going to select it. That's all that means. So they talk about working with these different selection sets. And so essentially, once you have geometry on the drawing, you can select it. And so there's different ways to select it. One way is by using a pick box. And so if I say move, and if I wait for it long enough, it should come up with the help command, and it's not, so I'll just select it. I think it's because I was in the other window pane. And so what it shows is that the move command, you can type F1 for help, but I'm just going to say move. And then this is what's called a selection cursor. And so as I select things to move, they highlight, they turn light blue, and then it reflects it back here in the command line telling me how many objects I have selected. And then if I hold the shift key, I can unselect certain things. So if I just want to select the circle, I can unselect by holding the shift key, and then I hit enter. And then it wants to know, well, where do you want to move it from? I'll move it from the center over to the other side here. And so that's a quick example of using the move command with a pick box. If I use a window, I can say move, and then I can select the objects. If I use a blue window, it only selects the objects that are within the window. I have to hit enter once I select it, move it from here back to the other side. If I say move and I select it with a green window, it selects everything it touches. And I can hit enter to end the selection set and move it to the other side. So you have crossing windows, which are green, and then you have regular windows, which are blue. Regular windows are blue, and they only select what's completely within inside the window selection. And then you have some fancy other selection criteria like window polygon. So if I say I want to erase something and I type in WP for window polygon, then I can go, let's try that again, erase, WP, enter. Then I can go through and I can create a window selection of what I want to erase. So if I just want that center line, then I can hit enter, right click, and it'll bring that out. Crossing window, CP, erase, CP, enter. Enter. Not doing so well with this one. Doesn't seem to want to let me stop. There we go. Enter, and then we can erase all of those. Undo. Fence, erase, F for fence, and I can just drive a line through things and hit enter. So window selection or selection properties, it's just a lot of fancy different ways that you can go through and select something you want to modify. So when we get into selecting things, for example, if I wanted to select it and change the color, what I could do would be select it with a window, and then if I wanted to go to properties and say, I would like these to be a different color, I'd like them to be red, I can select that, and then I can hit escape, and now I've changed the color. And then you have these other things where you can go through, and if I was to move something like the circle, and then I wanted to do something else to it, like let's say I wanted to copy it, one selection set I could use would be to say last. And so I could say L for last, and it'll then select that last object and allow me to then copy it. And that didn't work exactly the way I thought it would. I thought it was going to grab the circle, and so I probably should have used previous, but I think you get the point as we go through. You can add and you can delete from the selection set by holding the Shift key. When you hold the Shift key and you click on it, then it removes it. So if I wanted to erase everything, I could say erase everything, and they go, oh no, I want to keep the circle. Hold the Shift key, click on the circle, and it removes them from the selection set. And then I can hit enter, and it'll erase just the things that are selected. So we're choosing what we want to modify. That's what selection sets do. Lasso, I really don't like this feature. The lasso allows you to select things by creating a lasso around them, and you can enable that or disable that in the options. And so mine's disabled, but if I want to enable it, I can go to options, and then I can select selection, and then I can say allow press and drag for lasso, and I can apply it and okay it. And then when I want to erase something, I get this lasso, and then I can hit enter. And I can undo that. I can put my lasso back off by going to options, selection, unchecking press and drag for lasso, apply it. Probably don't have to apply it, I can probably just okay it. Selection cycling allows you to select and alter through the different cycles. I typically don't use that very much either. Noun-verb syntax, really it's just, in my opinion, it's whether you use grips, you select it with a grip and you say erase, and then undo, or I can say erase and then select the object. Okay, which word do you want to have first? Erase or select? And then it gives us some selection set practices with the erase command. So they go through different ways to erase things using a window, crossing window, using a pick box, which would just be the little square. So a number of different ways, but it's really a very graphical language. These are good for people who kind of know AutoCAD already. If you can read how to draw, you're very talented. I particularly like videos. And so here, if I want to copy something, you select the copy command, and then you select the objects. I must have missed it, so I'll copy them now. Where I want to copy it from, and then where I want to copy it to. Escape or right mouse click bails you out of the command. And so they just go through, creating squares and circles and things like that at the end of the chapter. But the main idea behind chapter 4 is being able to select objects and the different ways to select them. Alrighty, so that ends this video lecture chapter 4. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll post it in D2L.